take it away. Thoughts on the game, feeling in the locker room. Just what did you take away from everything you took in today?
Yeah, hopefully this one goes through okay, but I'll say it again. All right, good. We're getting the thumbs up. This was the Sean Couturier game, and that's what it was first and foremost. Certainly not the only guy who had a really good game. Obviously, that whole line, Michkov, Konechny in particular, were great. They drove the bus. Weren't the only guys who played well. I thought, for example, Rasmus Ristolainen had a really good game. Not just because he scores, the big goal late, but I thought just overall, stepping into that first pair role, he had a really strong game. So certainly wasn't just Sean Couturier, but let's be honest. There have been a lot of people in the Flyers ecosystem that have doubted Sean Couturier over the last few weeks, months, even years. And this very much felt like a statement game from him to say that, I'm still here. I can still get it done. And it's so important for this team. Like, I wrote an article for Diehards, I believe it came out yesterday morning, basically saying that, one of the big reasons why this Flyers team looks like the team that we expected them to be at the start of last year is because there were things that broke their way at the start of last year that were in no way, shape, or form a guarantee. And so far this year, really since around February of last season, they haven't broken the Flyers' way. And one of those big things was Sean Couturier as a functional first-line center. Now, look, even the Sean Couturier that the Flyers got from October through January of last season, that guy isn't a 1C on a Stanley Cup team. But he is doing a decent impression of like a league average 1C. And if they can get that from him, suddenly it lets everyone else in the lineup slot in more comfortably. And the problem really since February is that they haven't had a 1C, which means their 2C has to play like a 1C and their 4C has to play like a middle six center like Ryan Poehling. And everybody then is thrown off because no one is being asked to do what they're actually capable of doing. They're all being asked to play a level above where they probably should be. I don't know if this means that Sean Couturier is back, but at the very least, he showed today he's still got it in him. And now it's going to be a matter of whether he can do it on a nightly basis. But the big story of this game, obviously, is the fact that Sean Couturier has the hat trick, and not just has the hat trick, but just looks like a legitimate top six center again. We'll see if he can keep it up.
It's his first career 5-point game on two intact MCLs. Yeah, the playoff hat trick. He did have 5 points and a hat trick, but only one MCL thanks to Radko Gudas. So Coots is definitely trending up. Going back to a couple of games ago, I said I like him and Michkov together. I want to have that as a duo. They moved Konechny back to that left wing, and boy, did it work today. For anyone who was like, oh, I wonder if they said TK was only a right winger and now he's left wing. Well, 5 points. I think he's pretty comfortable on the left side, Charlie. But I'm looking at the ice time distribution for Couturier. We made a lot out of last year after he fell off the cliff. And yes, there is an injury there, but like a hernia injury, the sports hernia is kind of, well, you wore down and then something ripped, Maybe you shouldn't have played Coots 20 minutes a game for the first 2/3 of the season and that wouldn't have happened. Is there any thought in your mind about like, okay, he's looking good as the 1C, but we need to monitor the minutes, like anything like that in your head?
I'm not there yet. I do think it's worthwhile to discuss, but my point where I am at the moment is let's give him the opportunity to show that this wasn't just a one-game thing. Like, I don't want to immediately jump into, okay, this is Sean Couturier now let's worry about managing his ice time. Let's give him a few weeks to show that he's back. And if he shows that he's back, and obviously he's not going to score 5 points every night, but if he can be a play-driving top six NHL center, centering the two most talented offensive players on the team, and can produce and can be impactful on a nightly basis, if he can do that for 2.5 weeks straight and make people realize that he's still a good player, then let's talk about the idea of, okay, maybe we don't want to overwork him. Maybe we don't use him too much. But right now, like I am enthused by what I saw from Sean Couturier, and I think Sean Couturier made a statement. But I don't want to start worrying about ice time until I know for sure that this is actually the Sean Couturier show again, that he's back. If he shows he's back, then let's talk about the idea of like, can't run him into the ground like you did last year, because it's a fair conversation to have. At this point, though, I think they need to just let him run with it. okay, you've got some confidence, you've got the momentum, you're feeling good about your game. Let's not worry about whether you're getting 21 minutes versus 18 minutes versus 15 minutes. Let's just see if you can keep this up. And then if you show you can keep this up, then we have the conversation about maybe we pull back on the ice time, not because John Tortorella is messing with you, but because we're actually trying to keep you going for longer.
Just one more thing on this line. So Coots centering TK and Michkov seems to work, right? Looks like it's going to work. Pretty great night tonight. But you mentioned this in terms of now everyone else slotting in, and we talked about it before you joined. Like, the most exciting thing is, hey, we have a line that just combined for like 12 points. That's cool. But after that, it's okay. Now we can set and forget this line, and we can figure out the middle six. Who belongs where? Figure out something, and then, hey, maybe we can have as many as 2 lines together for more than one game. That would be something. Were there any other lines today that maybe stood out to you positively or negatively?
That's a good question, because not really. Morgan Frost didn't get a shift in the final 15 minutes of the third period, and I thought that was justified. I didn't think he had a good game. He is functionally their second line center. I didn't think he was very good. I thought, Scott Lawton and Ryan Poehling had a few good shifts here and there, but, Scott Lawton takes probably a dumb penalty at the start of the second period. Ryan Poehling is Ryan Poehling. He's not a guy who you can necessarily depend upon for offense. He is who he is. He's a legitimately really good fourth line center. But if you're using him as your second line center or even your third line center, probably a bit of a stretch. So no, there wasn't a lot I loved about the other lines. In this game, it didn't matter. They got what they needed. All from that top line. That top line just killed it. They carried the team. But you're right. It's a problem that they need to figure out what. Okay, now you can say, as you said, set it and forget it. It's Konechny, Couturier, Michkov. That's line one. But they still got a lot of work to do to figure out what the best fits are with these other combinations, not even in terms of chemistry, but just in terms of roles. Who do you depend on in certain situations? Who takes the, does the Couturier, Michkov connecting line, does that get all of the offensive zone draws? Can you put together a sheltered second line that can take some of them? What's the line that you could depend upon for tough minutes? Because basically what they were doing in the third period of this game is they were just using Sean Couturier in every faceoff. Like, he was taking every draw and then jumping off the ice. I don't think that's sustainable. I think they need to figure out some other combinations, and that's going to take time. But at the very least, they've got the one.
Has he transformed into Claude Giroux now? Like, yeah, you have to take every face off. Congratulations. Like, that's great stuff. Go ahead, JP.
What's up, Charlie? So I wanted to talk about Tortorella and his antics. Because listen, the fan base can be restless at times with that, right? But look, we all know earlier he put Coots on the fourth line as a winger. And obviously a lot of discourse about that with the fan base. And we all know about the benching of Forster, the benching of Brink. But, like, Charlie, he does these things, but it seems like it works. Obviously you put Coots on that fourth line. Boom, we have a hat trick here today. What do you make of all that?
Well, I don't know if I would go so far as to say it works.
Okay.
Some of these guys, I think, are destined to improve just by the nature of the way, like, positive regression works. Couturier for the last couple games has been banging on the door for goals. I thought he was a direct cause of 2 of the goals they scored on Wednesday night by setting screens and being in the right area. So I don't know if I want to give John Tortorella the credit. Like, this is one of those, under no circumstances do you have to hand it to him. It was dumb in my mind, and it was kind of mean to put Sean Couturier on the wing on the fourth line for a milestone game of his. I don't think the fact that he had a big game tonight makes that retroactively a good idea. So I'm hesitant to say that, like, oh, Tortorella's pressing all the right buttons. Like, I think you could have gotten this out of Couturier without embarrassing him by putting him on 4 left wing for the first half of the home opener. I think you probably could have. That said, look, I will not deny that John Tortorella is a good hockey coach. What he did with the team last year was very impressive, aside from the end when he kind of went a little crazy. He's a good hockey coach, and he knows what buttons to press a lot of the times. I don't think he's done an incredible job so far this year. I don't think the Flyers have been disciplined enough, and in the end, that's on the head coach. They're still taking too many penalties. They're still blowing coverages, and they need to be better, and that falls on the head coach. But so I don't want to give him too much credit. I guess that's where I'm coming from. I'm not saying I'm not saying he's wrong all the time. I just don't want to give him too much credit.
Charlie, a couple more for you. I want to talk about Rasmus Ristolainen because you pointed him out. He got the big bump in ice time in York's absence. He's up on the top pair, well over 20 minutes today. He was playing about 16 and a half minutes a game this year. He averaged about 16:40 last year. Do you think the plan going forward is just leaning heavily on Sanheim Risto like they did today? No one else had 20. Those guys were well over 25.
Well, I think it's clearly the first plan. Now, whether that stays as the plan, I guess that'll depend on how Rasmus Ristolainen and Travis Sanheim, for that matter, how much they play. I just don't know what other option they really had, because I guess you could have theoretically tried Seeler with Sanheim, but Seeler's just coming back from injury. I'm not convinced he's fully 100% yet, so I don't know if you want to put him in that spot. The idea of bumping Jamie Drysdale up to a first pair, I don't think he's ready for that. If anything, I want him getting sheltered minutes as they try to remake his game and develop him into the player they want him to be. So I think Risto kind of was the only real option. And John Tortorella said it after the game, the loss of Cam York for at least 2 weeks, potentially longer, it's huge. And Torts kind of marveled at, he basically said, going back to where Cam York was 2 years ago, where Cam York even was this time last year, it's amazing how much this loss hurts us. Because if you would have told him that losing Cam York for a few weeks would be this impactful, 14 months ago, he probably would have laughed at you. But it's a really big loss. And now they have to rely on somebody like Ristolainen, who probably is not best served in a first pair role. We saw how bad he was at it in Buffalo, but they're kind of stuck, and he just kind of has to step up. Guys are going to have to step up.
I just love that Torts, even in objectively complimenting Cam York and how important he is to this defense, has to throw some sort of shade. He is absolutely one of a kind.
He's one of a kind. Yep.
Charlie, it's still pretty early, but I want to talk about Ersson. How would you assess him through the first 8 games? Obviously, with an .808 save percentage, not great, but how would you assess him through the first 8?
And he had an .808 save percentage tonight. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think he has an .808 save percentage for the season. I thought he had a rough night tonight. I do. And I think John Tortorella probably shares that belief, because he actually went out of his way, Torts did, to praise the team defense. He said, look, we didn't have the puck enough, and that's partially on structure and forecheck and whatever, but he's like, the team defended well. And if the team defended well and still gave up 5 goals, what is left unsaid is that he probably wasn't too happy with the way the goalie played. I thought Ersson gave up 2 weak goals in particular, 2 goals that I thought he really should have stopped. He got off to a real good start. I thought he was incredible in the game against Vancouver. I thought he was good against Edmonton. Since then, his game has dipped a bit, and this was kind of the low point so far. I still have faith in Sam Ersson's talent. I think he can turn it around, but this game wasn't good enough. And I think he would tell you that too. This game wasn't good enough. The Flyers probably should have, which is weird to say given the fact that, they had 6 shots on goal through 2 periods. If Sam Ersson plays a solid game, not even a great game, they probably cruise in this game. They probably cruise to a win because they just end up running them out of the building in the 3rd period. Instead, Ersson's a little leaky, and they have to win in dramatic fashion. But am I concerned about Ersson? Yeah, I'm concerned about him because he's never been a number 1 goalie, and so far it's not going great. But I do think he has the talent to figure it out. It's just tonight wasn't a very good night for him.
I have so much I want to talk to you about, Charlie, but we're running short on time here. I want to ask about Nick Seeler. I want to ask about the shot volume, but we have all week. We do a show every day. So let's end it with Charlie O'Connor's 3 stars. Hit me with star number 3.
Yeah, I think this is the first time all year I can pick 3 Flyers.
Well, it's their first regulation win, so that makes sense.
It's a fair point. 3rd star, I'm going to go with one Matvei Michkov. I thought the goal he scored on that delayed penalty near the end of the 2nd period, now obviously they then give up a goal with 3.2 seconds left in the period, but I thought that goal was enormous, even though it ultimately, doesn't lead to a sustained lead for the team because they choke it away with seconds left. The game was very much trending in the direction of Minnesota was going to take it over. And I thought Michkov, with that goal, another goal very similar to the one he scored on Wednesday against the Capitals, where he basically just shoots a seeing eye shot through a bunch of traffic. He sees that there's traffic and he gets it through. Similar shot, similar goal. I thought that goal was enormous. I thought it fired up the team. I loved the celebration he had. And just you can see the chemistry between him and Konechny and also with Couturier. And if they have a first line now, that's going to go a long way. And Michkov was a not insignificant part of that. He's my 3rd star. He's now over a point per game. He's off to a hell of a start.
Hit us with star number 2.
Star number 2, Travis Konechny. Guy finished with 5 points, 4 assists, 1 goal. And it's worth noting that he's doing this playing through something. Now, I don't know what the injury is, but it's abundantly clear he is banged up. He's been getting treatment after every game, got treatment after this game. We eventually did talk to Konechny, but it took some time because I guess he was on the trainer table again. I think it's for like the 4th straight game that we've had to wait for him if we wanted him. So he's banged up. Despite that, and despite the fact that he's playing on the left wing, which John Tortorella reiterated today, Konechny doesn't really like to play the left wing. Konechny said it's mostly because it feels weird off faceoffs. The responsibilities just aren't natural to him off faceoffs at left wing. The fact that he was able to do that, playing through injury, playing in a position he doesn't particularly love, it speaks to, number one, his skill. He's a really good player. But number 2, it speaks to the fact that, he's a team leader. And this was a game where you need your team leaders to step up. You're on a 6-game losing streak. You're going against a team that's off to a really hot start. They needed something from Travis Konechny tonight, and they got a lot. And he's my number 2 star.
And now, what everyone's been waiting for, Charlie O'Connor's first star. I wonder who it could be.
Yeah, well, it's Rasmus Ristolainen. No, it's obviously Sean Couturier.
I would leave. You're hosting the end of the show.
No, it's obviously Sean Couturier. This struck me as a game where when Sean Couturier eventually retires, and hopefully he's able to, be successful well into his mid to late 30s, when he retires, this is a game that we will talk about because it just felt important in the trajectory of his career, where things seemed like they were going, the fact that he hadn't scored in so long, the injuries, the battles with John Tortorella, the scratchings, ending up at 4th line left wing for the home opener. It just seemed like his career was going in the direction of uh-oh. And tonight was Sean Couturier basically saying, not so fast. And, the goals were great. The fact that he's establishing himself as the team's 1C again, that's awesome. But it was just a big game, I think, for Sean Couturier as a person and a player. And for that reason, he's the obvious number 1 star.
We all silly like the mayor.